Welcome back to Adaptive Humans, the podcast for real talk and intentional growth. I'm your host, Jami de Lou. Around here, we return to three anchors: how we navigate our emotions, how we adapt across differences, and how we steady ourselves when stress or triggers show up. Because that's what helps us stay human when life gets real. This is our final episode of the year. I can't believe it. And instead of forcing optimism or rushing into resolutions, I want us to be honest about the world we just walked through and intentional about how we enter 2026. Today's episode has three parts, as always. Beyond the bio, where we go beneath titles to the real human stories. Brave Enough Moment, where we tell the truth about moving before we feel fully ready. And the Just Be Reset, our moment to pause, breathe, and create space to renew ourselves, in particular before the new year. So let's begin together. Beyond the bio, this segment is where we get at the human story beneath the surface. When I think back about 2025, and I go beneath the resumes and polished updates, beneath the I'm fine responses and curated online presence, this year was a year that stretched people quietly, deeply, and often invisibly. Woosa. So many of us, myself included. And we cannot talk about the emotional experience of this year without acknowledging the world we lived in. I want to do this gently, truthfully, and without politicizing people's pain. This year, individuals and communities across identities and life experiences carried the weight of a range of things, from escalating violence and war, families displaced or grieving unimaginable losses, the detentions and kidnapping by ICE that created fear and instability for families in cities across the United States based on their identity or the color of their skin, for Hispanic communities, and more recent for Somalian communities. We've seen targeted attacks on LGBTQ communities, reopening old wounds, current wounds, and amplifying vulnerability. The rise in anti-Semitism and Islamophobia that have left Jewish and Muslim communities feeling unsafe and at times unseen. For diversity, equity, and inclusion professionals, jobs were eliminated, law firms and major corporations were targeted by executive orders. Job loss is at an all-time high, and the government shutdown left employees and their families stretched and stressed for income. And social climate where people didn't know if their identity was safe in public spaces, or frankly, for some, in their workplaces. These are not abstract issues. They live inside of people's bodies, our bodies. They show up as hypervigilance, exhaustion, irritability, emotional shutdown, difficulty concentrating, or trouble trusting connection. They also show up at dinner tables, in classrooms, in team meetings, in leadership rooms. And different communities carry different forms of pain, all of it real, all of it valid. Even if these events didn't touch your life directly or personally, they touched the collective environment that your nervous system was operating inside of. We all felt that ripple. Naming this is not about division. It's about truth. It's about compassion. It's about understanding why we were more tired, more overwhelmed, more emotionally stretched than we expected. So if this year felt heavier for you, not just professionally, but personally, emotionally, physiologically, you weren't imagining it. You were responding to a real layered load that you have been carrying and that we all have been carrying. And this is the part that never shows up in anyone's bio. People carrying private grief while holding public responsibilities. people absorbing tension in their family or team without naming it, people performing with strength while quietly feeling like they're unraveling inside, people mediating conflicts rooted not in strategy, but in fear, people feeling disconnected from themselves because their bodies stayed in survival mode for too long, and people losing joy or clarity without knowing how to get it back. Underneath titles and achievements, capacity, not talent, became the defining variable of the year. Because when nervous systems are overloaded, collaboration suffers, trust thins, creativity shrinks, decision making slows or becomes reactive. Teams misinterpret differences as threats, and individuals look checked out when they're actually overwhelmed. What I witnessed across industries was not a talent crisis. It was a capacity crisis, a humanity crisis, a systems crisis. And the cost of the unaddressed emotional, cultural, and physiological strain showed up everywhere in families, organizations, communities, and in our own internal experience. This was the year people realized that human operating systems, the blend of our EQ, our CQ, and our stress responses, isn't optional. It's foundational. It's the only thing that allows us to adapt, collaborate, and think clearly under pressure. So as we close this year, beyond the bio is simply this: we survived a lot. We held a lot. And if you're tired, it's because your humanity was working overtime. Now the question becomes, what does it really look like to rebuild capacity in 2026? Which brings us into our brave enough moment, the space where we honor courage before clarity. My brave enough moment as we wrap up this year is one that I've been moving towards quietly, steadily, and if we're honest, sometimes reluctantly. I'm excited to share that I'm stepping fully into my work as an adaptability architect and human systems strategist. Not because it was neat or the expected next step, not because someone handed me a roadmap, but because it became impossible to ignore the patterns that I was seeing. Organizations don't struggle because they lack talent. Let me say that for you one more time. Organizations do not struggle because they lack talent. They struggle because they lack adaptability, the human capacity to stay aligned, decisive, and resilient under pressure. And adaptability can't be built with policies and one-off trainings. It requires integrating emotional intelligence, cultural intelligence, and nervous system science, thinking about how we manage our stress responses. It's the deeper layers of human behavior most workplaces never address, but will be required to, so that people have the human skills required to lead and navigate the workplace in 2026 and beyond. This path for me is not fully mapped out. There is no one job title that positions me to do this work. There's no playbook, no model to copy. It's an accumulation of organizational design, culture, leadership, and broader talent knowledge. It's also a half a decade of gathering data of the human experience and how we adapt across differences. And that's exactly why it feels brave. But bravery, real bravery, is almost never that big cinematic leap, right? If you listen to one of my earlier episodes, I talk about it's not the idea of leaping across the Grand Canyon, right? It's about peeking over and realizing if I take that first step, I can see a little bit more and realize, oh my goodness, there's actually a path that I can get across this beautiful, majestic Grand Canyon. It's the decision to move when you don't yet feel polished, perfect, or proven. The 3 Ps, right? Again, it's the decision to move even when you don't yet feel polished, perfect, or proven. And maybe your brave enough moment this year looked different. Maybe it was asking for help instead of drowning quietly, admitting burnout instead of powering through, leaving a role that was no longer aligned with your values, using your voice in a space where silence once felt safer, setting boundaries that protected your well being. Maybe it was giving yourself permission to rest or reclaiming your joy after a season of survival. Or maybe it was challenging the status quo even when your voice shook. Bravery is not a personality trait. Taking the step of the brave enough moment is one action, one step, one foot in front of the other. It's a practice of alignment, a practice of noticing when the old way of operating is costing you too much and taking one step toward that new way, even when it's shaky. 2026 will reward people who are brave enough in grounded ways. The ones who innovate carefully, who set intentional boundaries, who learn about regulating their nervous systems before reacting, or re-regulating their nervous systems when they just reacted to something because they were triggered. It'll reward those who choose clarity over avoidance, who adapt with humanity, not urgency. Being brave enough doesn't mean certainty. It means presence. Presence in ourselves first, and presence is what makes adaptation possible. The Just Be reset. Before we close, I want to guide you into a reset, a moment for your body and mind to catch up to themselves. And I want to weave in something that matters deeply, especially in hard seasons. And that's joy as a choice, where it's available, not the forced kind, not the kind that demands you ignore suffering, yours or anyone else's, but the kind of joy that gives your system just enough relief to remember you're human. So if it's safe to do so, I want you to take a moment right now and pause. Soften your jaw, drop your shoulders. Let your breath deepen without forcing it. This isn't about perfection, it's about permission. And we're going to move through 3 grounding reflections and then make a little space for some joy. So, our first reflection, I want you to take a minute to answer this question. What part of me is tired from carrying what wasn't mine this year? I'll say that again. What part of me is tired from carrying what wasn't mine this year? Maybe you held the weight of your team, your family, your community. Maybe you buffered conflicts. Maybe you held back parts of yourself to stay safe. It happens. All of it happens. Maybe you overfunctioned because the system around you undersupported. You don't have to fix it right now. Just name it, internally or out loud, for yourself. Your body will thank you for telling the truth. The second reflection I want you to ask yourself is, what part of me deserves more support in 2026? I'll say that again. What part of me deserves more support in 2026? Not the optimized version of you, not the overperforming version of you, the real you. Support might look like boundaries, or rest, or clarity, or mentorship, or spiritual grounding, or companionship and connection with others, or slowing down long enough to hear yourself again. Support isn't indulgent. Support is strategic and purposeful. Our third reflection is going to ask you the following question. What can I release even by 5% before the year's end? I'll say that one more time. What can I release even by 5% before the year ends? Not everything, just one layer at a time. And you're allowed to start at 1% if you need to. Maybe it's the urgency that was never yours. Maybe it's guilt for needing rest. Maybe it's those habits that are perpetuating perfectionism. Maybe it's the belief that you had to carry everything alone. Maybe it's a story about who you should be that no longer fits you. So I want you to take a minute to pause, loosen your grip just a little bit. Take a deep breath in, that long exhale out, and that's what release feels like. And now, joy. Not bypassing, not denial, a reclamation of what it feels like to feel joy. I want to name something simple and profound. You are allowed to feel moments of joy, ease, and fun, even in dark times. Joy doesn't mean you're ignoring suffering. It doesn't mean you're disconnected from what's happening in the world. It doesn't mean you've stopped caring about people who are hurting. Joy is a nervous system resource, a pressure valve, if you will, a way for your body to remember it is more than what it carries. And joy can be small, a laugh you didn't expect, a song that makes you dance or softens something inside of you, a conversation with someone else that feels like home, a meal that tastes warm and inviting, like a gentle comfort. Maybe it's a moment outside where the air feels different, a bit of ease you allow yourself without guilt. Joy doesn't erase the heaviness. It gives you a moment to breathe inside of the heaviness. Joy is not irresponsible. Joy is resilience. Joy is repair. And for some of us, joy is rebellion, a refusal to let pain be our only story. So as you exhale one more time, ask yourself gently, where is joy available to me? Even for 30 seconds, even for one breath. Let your body answer that question, not your mind. And take that answer, whatever it is, into your new year. I thought I'd take a quick second to offer my own example of how engaging in something and taking a step or connection made a difference and sparked joy for me. So over the weekend, I got to go to Kris Kringle markets in two different cities. Anyone that knows me knows I love a good holiday market. I aspire to go to every holiday market there is around the world. There's just something about the crisp air and the vendors and the people and the boot with the, your warm wine. For me, that's what I enjoy. But I got to travel and see one of our daughters in another city and my other daughter near home going to the Kris Kringle market in both cities. But while I was with my daughter where she lives, we had this day of adventure that ended with dinner at a German restaurant that she wanted to try. And I don't know if you've ever been to a traditional German restaurant, but they have benches and often there's a band and they play and people stand on the benches and they sing. And there's lots of fun and festive debauchery happening all around us. And all of a sudden, this song comes on that makes me think of my mom. And it was Sweet Caroline by Neil Diamond. And she loved that song. And it's that song that like everyone knows the chorus, but nobody knows the words. And I was sitting there and I wanted to get up on the bench and just sing. And I was like, why not? And I asked my daughter and she was not feeling it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to stand up. And so I jumped up onto the thing and I was just singing and dancing and in the moment. And she happened to catch a video of it. And when I watched it play back, I looked at myself and I thought, I look happy. Like you could see the joy exuding out of me. And I could literally feel it. Like I had a smile on my face for hours afterwards. And it was like this release valve had gone off in my body and released something out and just allowed me to have pure, unadulterated fun. And I'm not exaggerating. I was standing up singing for max 30 seconds, maybe a minute. And then I sat down and we enjoyed the rest of our meal and went on about our day. Pure joy because I allowed myself to have a fun moment. So look for it in the moments where a smile appears on your face. You feel deep belly laughter. Whatever it is, you don't have to name the joy as the activity you're doing. It's engaging in and following along with this thing that you want to do that seems fun, and joy might spark out of it. This is your reset. Truth, release, support, and the small but radical permission for fun that might just bring you joy. Carry this softness with you as you step into whatever 2026 holds for you. Even if it looks uncertain, even if it looks a little scary, or maybe because it looks like the most exciting thing that you've ever embarked on in your life. Thank you for joining me today and all season for the conversations we've had, the truths we've named, and the growth we've stepped into together. I have so much gratitude for the guests who have joined me thus far on Adaptive Humans. And as we move into 2026, this podcast will continue exploring the human side of leadership and life, the parts of human behavior that actually shape how well we collaborate, adapt, and stay grounded under pressure. We'll keep returning to the stories and skills behind leadership that lasts because adaptability always starts with presence. Presence with yourself first, then with others, and with the systems that you're a part of. We'll still continue to engage guests on the show and use storytelling as a way to build empathy and connection and understanding. And around here, we will return to 3 anchors: how we navigate our emotions, how we adapt across differences, and how we steady ourselves when stress or triggers show up. Because that's what helps us stay human when life gets real. I'm so grateful you're here. Thank you for listening in and helping me create my own brave enough moment by launching this podcast in 2025. Take good care of yourself. And remember, I am brave, I am enough, I am brave enough, and so are you. This is Adaptive Humans, real talk, intentional growth. May you have a gentle holiday season. I'll see you next year.